Today is another Aquatic Monster series entry, and as always I use Connie's Tasty True Triad palette. I'm thinking I might end up using like other colors with this palette. It's not like this isn't enough, but I don't know, I think I might, depending on how I feel, I might introduce some other colors to the piece. Also, I am going to be using this paper again, like I said in the last video. I have I don't know, really enjoyed using it, and I want to see how another illustration looks on it. So let's get designing our next aquatic monster. On top of the Tasty True Triad palette that I used, I only used the pink that is also in that palette, which is not native to that palette. I've just put it in there to keep it safe basically, and not just loosely sitting around, because it still is a Connie watercolor that she's created, so that's why it's in there. And I also used the pretty fairy dust one, as well as the black from my Milan set. So that's basically all I used this time round with that palette. This piece took me a very long time to do, longer than usual. This one took me about 3 days to do, and yeah, it was very well worth it, I think. Once again, there's a few things that I could pick apart with it that I need to work on, like always, but that's just the way it is. I want to sit down and do a more difficult piece and a more involved piece, a bit more than I usually do. And yeah, overall I am very happy with this piece, but I just wish that I would have backed off from the white gel pen around her face in the end. But you will see what I mean when we get to that part. Anyway, so this aquatic monster, I sort of couldn't work out whether she was going to be nice or if she was going to be evil, but I sort of settled on she's a bit of a combo. She's a little bit, a little bit evil when she needs to be, but generally she is nice. So she just floats around in the ocean. She's just this octopus woman, and I haven't thought of any sort of fancy name for her. I was going to think of a fancy name, and I just went, nah, it don't matter, we're just gonna call her an octopus woman. And yeah, so she just floats around, and basically what she does is, if you're nice to her, she is fine to you. She generally leaves everybody alone, but if she feels threatened, that's when she brings out her nasty side in her, and yeah, you will feel the full wrath of this octopus woman. Most of this illustration was done just by sort of winging most of it. The only thing I really got a reference for was her face, and even then the reference that I got didn't even look like the person that I copied. I've got this ability to not, when I am copying faces, that it never ever looks like anything like the reference that I am copying. But that's always a good thing, because I don't really want it to look the same, but on the same token, it's kind of like I can't really copy identical pieces, with like my eyes. They don't seem to, my brain doesn't seem to interpret it exactly the same to paper as of what I'm seeing. God, that took a bit to get out, but anyway. And yeah, so I got a reference for her face, and I got a reference for the octopus tentacles, and that's about it. Everything in between I really did wing. Like I winged her her hands, and I winged her arms, and I winged her whole chest, her boobs, her rib cage. Sort of when I started to draw the rib cage, I just sort of went in and narrowed it in a bit and then went back out, very sort of shapely. And yeah, I didn't sort of copy too much of a references of where the octopus legs were. I more just really needed a reference for those suction cap things underneath the arms of the octopus. So the rest of it was just putting the tentacles where I thought they would, you know, suit the drawing. A lot of it goes off the page, which is what I intentionally wanted, but yeah, I'm hoping that it looks okay, because, you know, it's a little bit, sometimes when I go off the page a little bit, it's because I have, you know, done an illustration too far over one side, or too high or too low. But she this time was intentionally meant to have the tentacles go off the page. So like I said, this illustration took me 3 days to complete, well, over 3 days. And yeah, I really started with her face. I really did the detailing on her face first. I wanted to, usually what I do when I tackle illustrations is I will put a wash of every color over everything first, where it's at its massive ugly stage, and then I go back in and do another wash over everything, and then I start to then after that go in and attack certain sections of the piece and then work on the detail from there. But this time I really wanted to just do a section at a time and then complete it, and then move on to the next section and complete it. As I got to the end of this piece, I kind of got a little bit impatient and then started basically coloring in most of it, painting it up, and then going back over and layering it again, and then doing all the line work. Yeah, probably for the first 3/4 of this video, I really just focused on just a section at a time, and just really sort of got the details that I wanted down, because this was quite a complex piece and I really wanted it to be quite detailed, and I really wanted to spend a bit of time on this one. I usually use my Pigma Microns, but I had completely forgotten about this Winsor & Newton liner that I got in a scroller box, and I only just found it the other day, and I thought, well, I'm going to use it and yeah, see how, just to sort of revisit this marker, because I've only used it once when I used it for a scroller box. The only thing I noticed with it is it does sort of activate with water. So some of the lines I went over, it sort of smudged a bit. Other than that, it's a really nice pen, and yeah, I've left it out now so I remember to use it. But a lot of this is just stages where I go in and try and create like a highlighted area with like making it a light blue, then building up at the edges of the top of her head here. And yeah, it was this is a technique that I sort of don't really do, and I do think I did pretty well with the top of her head there, with her forehead, how I've sort of tried to do the best gradient that I could out well, yeah, back in to her center of her forehead to make it as light as possible, and then just trying to get all that shading right. I think I did all right. Like I said, this was really upping my game with this piece, and I really just wanted to try and build upon what I already know, and just try and get some more skills and try and build some more skill level up with the complexity of this piece, which, like I said, there is definitely things that I need to still need to learn, and that's part of this journey. Like I have talked about in previous videos, sometimes I just feel like I'm going around in circles with some of my videos. I just keep mentioning and talking about the same thing, but it's true, because like I said, this art channel of mine is a complete journey, and it's just showcasing to the public what like just showcasing my journey. So instead of like a written secret diary, this is a visual video diary of me going on my art journey and trying to improve, and yeah, and just showcasing it to anyone who wants to watch. And if I, you know, inspire some people out there to realize their dream and do it as well, it's, yeah, that's basically what I'm all about with my channel. So this piece was definitely very complex, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I probably won't do another one this heavily complex for a while, but definitely want to do more of these pieces and grow. So I sort of learned a fair bit from this piece, and probably the one thing that I did learn was as much as I love the texture of this paper, because I'm using that line that's got all those little lines going through it. It's probably not the best to layer watercolor on top of, because I did notice that when I started to really layer the watercolors, the paper did sort of tear up a bit. So I wouldn't say that this is quality watercolor paper, because it's definitely far from that. But it is definitely good to do a couple of layers and leave it at that, and then have that texture come through. And yeah, it gives a really nice effect. But like I said, I can't sort of really complain too much about this paper, other than that I noticed, because it did hold up pretty well. And yeah, it really just, that texture, it's really nice, and I just really love the aesthetics of what that texture does do with illustrations. My main goal has been to work on more feminine and more female bodies, and that's what I have been really sort of striving to do lately, is to sort of build upon that, but also still migrate that with my monster elements and that. And one of the things that I really have been trying to work on too is hair. As you can see, the hair on this piece, it's not too bad, but it's, once again, still needs a lot of work, and that's what I'm sort of been working a lot on is hair. Once again, I'm like a broken record. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos, I can't seem to get a grasp on how to do hair, and that's probably the number one thing that I really want to work on is hair. And that is why I chose to really sort of tackle the female body and female features and female faces at the moment, because it's something that I am very weak in, that I feel, and I need to work on the absolute most. So we now jump to near the end of this illustration. There was a fair bit that I left out of this video, because this video was, this whole filming process was so long. I really cut a lot of it out. It was a really massive amounts of gigs of video footage that I just did not want to put on here. I wanted to keep this video as short as possible. So you'll see that I have completed one half of the tentacles, and I've put all her black dots all over her, and I'm going in and doing the little suction caps now, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed making and drawing these suction caps, because I've never done that before, and it looked so complex, but yeah, it was very rewarding. And my favorite part is the part I'm working on now, which is that front one. And yeah, I really liked how that turned out, and I sort of do like how the tentacles turned out, so I was pretty proud of myself there with that. Never doing octopus tentacles before. I actually have done an octopus before, but it was the most pissy ass like rendition of an octopus when I did one in one of the it was one of the prompts. I can't remember what the prompt was called now. It's escaped me, but yeah, it was, I drew an octopus sitting in bed with a little devil on the top of the bed head, and yeah, it was absolutely shit. So this is like a massive improvement from that moment. Yeah, so I am quite happy with myself for making these tentacles like that. And as you'll see, she's quite shiny. I put quite a lot of shine on her with the fairy dust, and her little nipple covered starfish type nipple covers, I did them in the same pink that I did her lips in, which was that shimmery pink you'll see that I have in the Tasty True Triad palette there. And yeah, this it just gave her a really sort of shimmery look, and on certain angles it just looked really cool. So I don't think I do a shimmer test and show you guys it, but this is when I'm applying all the white gel pen, and yeah, I think I went a bit overboard with that, but other than that, I think she turned out quite well, and I am definitely quite happy with this piece. It's definitely nice and bright, something that I don't usually do, and that's why I enjoy working with Connie's palettes. So that's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.